Welcome to this Excel video. It's more a demo rather than a tutorial, but what it does is show a bunch of different little tricks that I've used in some of my previous videos while showing a little file that I've got sitting on my website for a dollar if you're interested. It's basically around recording and managing body composition. So this is the menu page. You can do your assessment, have your little sort of notepad, if you like, in two forms. One of them is if you are doing the ISAC process, which is much more formalized. The other one is if you're just doing your own testing, which may sometimes be skin folds and may other times be a full anthro profile with girths and such. So let's try the add data first. That takes us to the first window, and the one that I use most commonly. All of these boxes that you can see here, athlete name, sport, etc., are all drop down boxes, so you can just pick and choose whatever you want. When we get into the skin fold section, this is the same as I used in a video previously. I believe it was video 34 where I showed a quick little version of this. Now, a feature of this spreadsheet is the ability to use your own criteria for identifying when it's necessary to do an extra test. So here we go, we've done everything with two trials, and what we see in the tricep window is that the cell below it is red, and that's telling us that there is too great degree of difference between the first and second trial. So for example, if this was 12, that would not be red. So there's a little bit of self-protection in there. I'll just pick another one. The first one was 12.1, second one 9. There it is, it goes red. And so there are two reasons why it can go red. There are two different thresholds that determine the colouring of those cells. The first threshold is an absolute difference between the two trials. And you can control that in the setup window. It's the control panel. It features in pretty much all of my spreadsheets. The next thing is this variability percentage. So as we can see, it's 21% here, and so that's very high, and as a consequence it wants you to assess again. And so anyhow, once you've entered some skin fold data into the system, you can, because a lot of people are still interested in this, particularly athletes, you can come down here and you can select different equations to show an estimation for percentage body fat. Now if a value doesn't come up, it's telling us that there's not enough information to compute that. So I'm just going to choose another one. There we go. So there are a few different options that you can customize in the system that allow you to do just some quick little work with your athletes. Now let's say you're happy with that. You may write some notes and some comments for yourself around what you think you might advise them to do next time. And once you've done that, you can simply copy it to the database, and it clears it all out for you to do another assessment. Now when you click copy to database, what it does is it simply goes to the main data page, finds the first available row, pastes the data in, and it then sorts the data by date. Now if we go back to the menu, the second way to enter data was using the ISAC page. Now I've entered some data in here as well, so it's nice and quick. Once again, we've got drop down boxes that make selection of those variables easy. They're all configurable, these drop down boxes. You might want to have a more tight list of ethnicities, for example. But anyhow, as you can see, the criteria in here is shown in this column, or these two columns really. Basically, there are some rules around ISAC certification that says if certain measurements are more than a certain threshold, for example 1% difference to the previous measure, then you need to do a third measure. And so as you can see here, because there's a 1.4% difference between the height of the athlete, then a third assessment is needed. There's a little bit more leniency when it comes to the skin folds, but it's still pretty tight. And so yes or no appears if they want you to do a third measurement. What's good about this is when you do the entire profile, you can get some some matter typing which is of interest to certain people, so body mass, waist to hip ratios, endomorphy, ectomorphy, etc. So similar to the previous page, if you want to, you click copy to database, it clears it all out, takes it to the last available row, and then sorts by date. So you can see Donald's row is the bottom one here. Now what the real value of doing it in a system like this is that you can create reports easily. So I've left some example data in here to show what we can do, and really this is designed for you to customize yourself. So you might put your own little title and logo at the top here, but this drop down list is a list of all the names in your system. Let's choose Donald, who we just assessed. Now here's Donald's data. The most recent test that we just recorded was the 3rd of April, and we can see that's the last value here. What we might like to do is have a few less data points on this particular graph. Sometimes with athletes you might be testing them regularly and end up having 25 or 30 sets of data. So I'm going to use these two arrows to show a little bit less data, just the last 4, for example. If I wanted to, I'd bring it all out again. So by default it will show all of the data set for an athlete, but then you can reduce that if you would like. The next thing to do is we've got a site-by-site comparison for this particular test. The most recent test was the 3rd of April. We can choose another test from this list that is our reference point. Now we may know that on the 15th of the 6th, 2011, for example, is when they're in their peak state. So you might want to use that as your comparison. So really all that's about is selecting a single comparison to be your selected reference. So your current test can be shown against that. And this last graph here is really showing previous data in a table. So for this particular person we know there's 8 previous tests and it's only showing the last 4. So if we wanted to, we could scroll down here, and really what that's changing is this 4 rows here. The current data is always shown at the top, and you've just got the capacity to show 4 previous data sets by scrolling through it. Finally, the last feature of it is about comments here. So if you click on this button, what you'll get is the 3 most recent comments for this athlete. Now if you recall, we wrote a comment under athlete feedback and that got stored against this particular test. So those 3 comments come in with the date that they were written, and it may be that you simply wanted to add some more information at the bottom and then save in PDF it an email and so on. But anyhow, there's a few tricks there. We did some data validation, there was some dynamic charts, there was a little bit of VBA code, and what it's showing you is that when you can link together little skills learned from lots of different sources, you can make quite a neat functional worksheet. So have a go and build your own. If you don't want to do that, check out my website and you can pick this one up for just $1. So I look forward to hearing any questions if you have them. Thanks.